Hello and welcome to this thought for the day. A recent lesson from the daily Mass was from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, the story of the vision of the valley of dry bones. Here the prophet Ezekiel receives a vision as a striking answer to the question, can these bones live? I remember once at St. Peter's at Evensong, the same reading was read by a server who launched into the reading with great gusto. Can these bones live? I thought, well, if that doesn't rouse them, nothing will. In context, it is a question the prophet asks about the people of Jerusalem who have been taken into exile in Babylon, beginning in the year 586 BC. We understand that Ezekiel, the prophet, was one of those exiled, a community decimated by invasion and destruction, with many ripped out of their beloved Jerusalem and resettled in a foreign land. The lament of the people is exemplified in that heart-rending Psalm 137, which begins, "By the waters of Babylon we sat down and wept." And it asks this poignant question, how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Ezekiel himself can't answer the question of whether the bones can come back to life. But he's given this wonderful vision of the Spirit of God breathing life into death, reminiscent of those first moments of creation. And as miraculous as the coming together of the bones and the reconstruction of the muscle and organs and the covering of the skin and the implantation of hair are, they are not in themselves the stuff of life. It is the Spirit of God that gives life. There was a great deal of prophetic traffic around the time of Ezekiel. We know this because those whose works have survived talk about false prophets, those who preach a different message than the surviving prophets do. Perhaps a one of complete doom, or of don't worry, be happy. Ezekiel is one of those prophets who sees in the events of his time the judgment of God, but no matter how devastating events are, God has impressed on the prophet that there is hope, not just for a future of return to things as they were, but for a future of fulfillment. The last chapters of Ezekiel's book contain a vision of the new temple in Jerusalem. The temple that in Ezekiel's time lay in ruins would be brought to a glorious completion. William Neil writes about Ezekiel's vision in this way. Before Judah's judgment day, God had washed his hands of Jerusalem and the temple and had taken up his abode with the exiles. Now the glory of the Lord returns to his temple and fills it with his presence. From it flows life-giving water that guarantees health to his people. And the city itself receives a new name, which fittingly is Ezekiel's last words. The Lord is there. The people did return to Jerusalem. The temple was rebuilt, only to be torn down in AD 70 by the Romans. But emerging from this people was the one we follow, Jesus of Nazareth. It is from him that the living water of God's Spirit flows into our lives. Can these bones live? Might well have been the question asked of the earliest Christians as they awaited the resurrection and the coming of the Spirit at Pentecost. Can these bones live? Is a question people might ask of the church through the centuries and even today. In the book of Ezekiel, there is an answer for his people. I will put my Spirit within you, and you shall live. In our context as Christians, we have Jesus' promise. I will pray to the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever, even the Spirit of truth. That new life in the Spirit of truth expresses itself primarily in those two great commandments to love God and love our neighbours. Sometimes we might feel like we are not people of the Spirit. As we face another day of pandemic, another day of lockdown, another day of uncertainty, we may not feel like the old bones have much life. God came crashing into Ezekiel's dislocated and broken world and showed him that new life was possible. As Christians, we know that Jesus brings new life to us in the person of the Holy Spirit. Yes, these bones will live. Please stay safe and God bless.